Okay, recording is now on. Yeah, so the Moodle site of this course can be found here in moodle.oulu.fi. Login, and then you need to use this login using Haka account. Don't ask what the Haka means. It's just a brand name of some sort for the login system used by the schools. So here on the drop-down, you need to select all University of Applied Sciences, and then you will get to our login, where you can then give your OAMC username and password and click login. And after a successful login, you are then in at the Moodle site. And from there, you should be able to find this object-oriented browser programming with DIN20SP name, and the course identifier is this ID 00CS41-3001. So this is our Moodle site for this course. And here I have listed the objectives again shortly so that you don't forget them. Then here is information about the grading. So the grading will be based on 2 home exercises. So 2 graded home exercises will be done. And both of those exercises will also be peer reviewed using the same mechanism what we already used in the last period in the HTML and CSS programming. If you were studying in that course, then you know how the peer review works. So we will have 2 exercises, and exercises will be timed roughly so that the first one should be completed roughly at the end of this January, and then the second one roughly at the end of February. But you will get more information on those later on. Then we will be using progress tracking. So every week you should mark yourself that how is your study progress going on. And we are using an Excel sheet for that. So here is the link what you can use for that one. And here are now all the students who are signed up for the course. So here we have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and so forth. So using these traffic light symbols, you should mark yourself, find yourself, and then after the week, so on the next week, you should mark the situation for this week 1. That what is your opinion? Are you okay with the learning, or are you having some problems, or are you having serious problems? And I will try to remember to remind you of filling this after every week. So, but if you were in the HTML CSS programming, this is as well familiar to you. And the objective with this progress tracking is so that if you indicate that you are having problems, then we could do something to rectify those problems. The idea is that everybody would pass this course. I do not like to see a situation where a student is present in the course, is having problems, and is not asking for help and then fails. That is a situation which does not make any sense. So please ask for help if you have any problems or any questions. And then I will try to use the progress tracking to see that if somebody is indicating that they are having problems, then I can contact them and try to help them if the situation is so that you have not asked for help yourself. So please do ask for help if you are having some problems. Okay, then let's see the schedule a little bit. I'm using here the Lukkarikone. This should show the schedule of the DIN20 group and also this class. So here is our Tuesday lesson today. And every week you can find these kind of reserved tutoring sessions in the calendar. And the idea of this tutoring session is that it gives you a chance to come and ask for help for if you are having some problems on something which we have covered in the lectures, or maybe if you are having some problem with homework or with the graded exercises or with anything. And now notice that these tutoring sessions and our weekly lessons, they are not fixed so that they are on the same day, on same weekday and same time on every week, but there can be some variations. So pay attention to that. So for example, next week we will have tutoring session on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, and on next week we also have 2 lessons. We have on Tuesday and then on Thursday. And then, okay, the lesson schedule seems to be at least here the same, but then the tutoring session again changes, and so on. So pay attention to the class schedules. There might be some variations. Then, since we are doing this as a remote teaching, so I will record all these lessons, and then here in the Moodle I will add here a YouTube playlist after today's lesson, where and I will add the lesson recordings to the YouTube playlist, so you can always access them from here. And then lesson materials and homework will be added here under these sections. These sections once the lessons have been kept. Okay, any questions at this moment? Apparently not. Okay. So let's begin then. Let's begin with some actual content. Just wait a second, I will find the materials here. Here is it here, object-oriented browser programming. And here. So I will now put a link to the Teams chat. It is a link to a Word document. I will try to keep up this kind of a learning journal or of the content what we are going through in the classes. So currently there is material for this first class. So there in the chat there is now a link to this document where I try to write before the lessons what we are about to go through during the lesson, and then so that you could maybe use the same document also afterwards to go through or to refresh that what was it that we discussed in the lessons. So this is instead of PowerPoint slides. So the name of the course was Object-Oriented Browser Programming, and when we are doing browser programming, we are basically doing JavaScript programming. And previously you have been studying JavaScript as the tool for learning programming basics, and you have been using Node.js. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So now we are moving to the browser. So Node.js is not the only environment where you can execute JavaScript. You can execute it also in different environments, and browser is one of those. And JavaScript itself, it is a name for an implementation of a programming language. And JavaScript is based on something known as ECMAScript specification. And this ECMAScript itself is basically a standard which describes how this language should work and what kind of feature it has. And this ECMAScript is maintained by an organization called ECMA International. So here you can find, for example, among other things, you can find also the specification for the ECMA script. And then they have a task group which task is to develop the ECMA script standard. So JavaScript is an implementation of this specification known as ECMA script. And so that is the reason if you are reading about different versions about JavaScript, you might see some kind of acronyms as maybe ES5 or ES6 or ES7 or something like this. So these ES5, ES7, they refer to the ECMAScript specification version, so ES as ECMAScript. And as I said, the implementation of this ECMAScript is called JavaScript. So that is something which is good to know as the background of the JavaScript and the relation of the ECMAScript and the whole ECMA International Standards Organization. Okay, but before we start to go into the more code-related things, here is one GitHub repository. So at my GitHub account, Lasse Havdas object-oriented browser programming. So you can clone this to your own computer if you want to follow these code examples. And I will be also adding here content as the course evolves. So currently we have only content for today. And if you are unfamiliar with Git, Git is a version control system. GitHub is a cloud-based Git repository hosting service. So there are two different things. So if you are unfamiliar with either the Git or GitHub, I very much recommend that you study then the basics of the Git. And here in the gitscm.com is here this Pro Git book, which has very good content. I very much recommend you to reading this Getting Started, Git Basics, Git Branching, and then Distributed Git, and maybe the GitHub. So if you are totally unfamiliar with Git, then reading these chapters will get you up to speed. So yeah, so if you want to get access to this code, I really recommend that you clone this repository to your own computer. And then once I update this repository, then you can easily pull the updates to your own computer to the repository which you have cloned. So just as a point or reminder, when you're using GitHub, you basically, let's say, never ever should you use this download zip option. Very rarely it makes any sense. So always you should go with the cloning option. And if you don't know what the clone is, what does it mean, then that is a clear signal that now you should study some Git basics and learn about that. Okay. So when we're talking about JavaScript execution in the browser, and by the way, I will be using this Visual Studio Code editor as my IDE in this course. So if you want to use the same, then here you can get it. There are versions for all the major operating systems. So you should be able to get it running. But of course, you can write the code by using any IDE what you might prefer. And also regarding the browsers, I will be using Chrome browser and the tools in the Chrome. So if you want to follow exactly that, then I recommend that you also use Chrome. Similar tools as what we are going to be using in the Chrome, similar tools are available in the other browsers, such as Safari or Microsoft Edge or Firefox. But the details of those tools and the UI and maybe the logic of those tools might differ from the Chrome. So you can also use those if you want, but I cannot give any support to those different browsers. So then you are on your own. But similar kind of tools are available for those browsers as well. Okay, so first thing what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open here a folder where I will be writing some code examples besides showing the code what is here in this repository. So then I will open this with Visual Studio Code. Here. Okay, so just to just as a very basic starting point, what we are going to do is that we are going to create an HTML file. So every time when you are executing JavaScript in the browser, it is done basically so that the browser must first load some HTML resource, and the JavaScript file is then referenced, or the JavaScript code is included in that HTML resource. So let's create, for example, here index.html, and then here let's write the basic HTML structure. So here we have a very basic HTML file, and then we will open it up in a browser. So there is my HTML file now. So when you want to execute JavaScript in the browser, you will need to use special HTML tag to do that, and that tag is called script, like so. So when you put JavaScript code between these starting and ending tags, then the browser will execute that code at the moment when it encounters these script tags. And this is called internal script, because the JavaScript code is internal to the in relation to the HTML document. And a very basic code would be to print out hello world by using console.log. So the console is an object which provides a method called log. And then we can give a parameter to the log method, and so that it would print out this somewhere to the console. In Node.js, this results in printout in the command line. But now when we reload this file, when we have saved it here in the browser, and when we have code which says console.log, you can see that nothing happens here in the browser. So this console lives inside the debugging tool in the browser, and normal web users do not have the debugging tools, of course, open. So I do not have here the debugging tool open. You can open it by right-clicking on some empty area in the web page in your browser and choosing this inspect. And then you will get this tool, which we already discussed about in the HTML and CSS programming course. Then we were using this elements tab here. So here this elements was showing all the HTML elements currently in view, and all the CSS parameters for those elements. Here in this tab, there is this console. Here you can see that there is this hello world. Hello world being printed out. And if I print something else, hello world 2, I save. Notice that when I save it, it does not automatically execute. The code is executed when the browser is passing through the HTML file and showing the contents of the HTML, rendering them. So the code is executed at the same time. So starting from here on top, the browser goes basically line by line, and then when it encounters this code, then it executes it line by line, starting from top and going to bottom. Now you can see that it shows here in the console hello world and hello world 2. And here on the right side, you can see that it shows that where did this printout come. So it came from the index.html file and from line number 9. And this came from line number 10. You can see there are the line numbers here in the Visual Studio Show. Then if we have the same printout twice, so now there is this hello world 2 twice, I reload. Okay, so it now shows this again like this. So if you have a certain situation where you are having a printout which is executed multiple times, for example in a loop, then there is a symbol which says that this printout in the console is now done multiple times. And we can test that. For example, if we create here a loop, so for example a for loop, which you should be familiar with. So for let I equals, for example, I equals 0, I is smaller than 10 and I plus plus. So we do this 10 times. And now if we reload, now you can see here that this is the way how it looks like in the browser if it has this same printout coming multiple times from the same line. So now it came from line number 11, and this has been printed out 10 times. And by the way, if you're using Visual Studio Code, I don't remember if I recommended this plugin to you or not, or extension. Here in the Visual Studio Code, you can have multiple extensions. They are available here in the left bar. If you click on the extension, then here, let's see, what was the name? Yeah, it's this kind of extension, Tab 9 Autocomplete AI. So this is a pretty amazing extension for the Visual Studio Code. So if you see me generating code on the fly, quite fast, then it is done by the Tab 9 plugins. And if you want to have the same capability, then I recommend you to install this extension to your Visual Studio Code. For example, this for for statement with these parameters. The tab 9 suggested it, and I just simply accepted it, so I did not have to write every character of that line. Okay, so then besides this kind of internal script, it is also possible to have scripts, external scripts. And that then means that we would have here a separate file, example.js, for example. And this is now a file where we can put JavaScript code in the same manner what we could do with the, for example, with the CSS last course. So here I will, okay, let's do the same for a statement here. Let's say, okay, 100 times I++. And for example, here console log. Let's print out something to the console. So this is just a placeholder code. You could have whatever code you would want to have here. I'm using console log here, so because it's the easiest way to see that we are executing the code. Okay, so now what we could do here is that we could put another script tag and then use the src attribute. And then here, by using either relative or absolute addressing, we can reference other JavaScript files. And now when we are using this file from this same folder, it should be able to do it like this. Probably also without the /, it should work just fine. So basically this means that please load a file with this name from the same folder where this HTML file was also loaded. So let's see. And there you have it. So first, this hello world is being executed, and then we see that the code from the example.js is being executed. And here you can see also the order that, because this hello world print out to the console came first, and after that came this is example.js printout. You know that this hello world is executing before this one. And we can see what happens that if we change the order here, for example here, that how does the order change? And this shows to you that indeed the order of appearance in the file is meaningful. So when we change this external script reference here to the beginning of the body, now you can see that it also executes first here before this hello world code, which comes after that. The script tag can also be inside the head, like it many times is. And it doesn't change the execution order here at all. You could load also JavaScript code by using some HTTP address. Here, the tab 9 is suggesting ajax-google-apis.com. So this is Google hosting. So Google is hosting some JavaScript libraries. So this tab 9 is suggesting that, yeah, maybe you want to get some JavaScript libraries from there, and it is offering it to me. So of course this example.js, it does not exist here in the Google API server, but this just shows you that you can also load these JavaScript libraries or files by using this kind of absolute addressing anywhere from the web. Okay, any questions at this moment? If no, then let's talk about these debugging capabilities. So here in this inspect element tool, there is also capability of debugging these JavaScript in a website, which is executed by the browser. And then this sources tab comes into play. Google has a very good learning, like a basic tutorial on how to do browser debugging in Chrome. They call it Chrome Dev Tools. So this is an article. So let's go through this article together. We are not going to watch the video, but how this works is that they have here that you can access from this button. It opens up a new tab here, and it has a small application, small browser application, and this has a bug. There is a problem in this application, so it doesn't work properly. So the idea here in this application would be so that if I put two numbers here, let's say 5 and 10, and then when I click on the button, it would calculate these together and then show the result. The result should be 15. But when it is clicked, there is some bug because it shows 510. So this is the problem here. And then here in the step 2, this tutorial introduces now the developer tools or the inspect element tools. There are keyboard shortcuts here. They introduce those. Control-Shift-I for the Windows and Linux, Command-Option-I for the Mac. Or you can always right-click and go here. The same keyboard shortcut is shown here as well. Okay, but now when we have a bug here in this JavaScript application, we can use these developer tools and the debugger there to help us to find that what is the problem. When you go here to the sources tab, you can see, most likely you can see this kind of view. There are 3 main sections there. Here is the resource browser, or I don't know how they call it. What is the file navigator pane? Okay, resource browser, file navigator pane. So anyway, a view which allows to see that what kind of resources and in which files they come to this page. So here you can see there is this get started. This is an HTML page. You can see here in the center section, this shows always the file contents. And then here on the right side, this is then the JavaScript debugger panel where you can have so-called breakpoints, and then you can see the contents of variables and then activate different kinds of breakpoints. Do you know what a breakpoint is? What is a breakpoint? A breakpoint is a term which is used with these software debugger tools, which means that it is a location in the source code where you set the code execution to stop. And that is a very useful feature, because when you are running some code and when it has some problem, if you can stop it at certain locations, then it gives you quite a lot of power, because then you can see that what is going on. And in addition to just stopping the execution, or actually the stopping is not a good term, pausing would be a better term. So it gives you the capability of pausing the execution at a certain location in the code, a location which you determine, and that location is called the breakpoint. So with this breakpoint, you can then see that what is happening in the code, what are all the values of the variables, and then you can execute the code from the breakpoint. You can execute it forwards, line by line, statement by statement, and therefore you can see that what is happening there. So that's what this third panel gives you the capabilities for. So here in this tutorial, they describe that a common method for debugging a problem is to insert these console log statements. So basically, whenever you have a problem in code, you have always typically the same tools at your disposal as a developer, how to solve it. And they are the three tools that you have available. First one is that, okay, you can try to read through the source code and try to find the problem like that. Here we can see the source code. We could also see it here from the view page source. So if we right click, in addition to this inspect, we could also use this view page source. We get to see this HTML, and then here is this JavaScript reference with this script tag. We can click there and we can see here the code. So one way to debug a software is that you read the code, you try to see that what is happening there, and then you try to find the location and the reason for the possible bug. When you find it, then you can fix it. So that is debugging method number one. Debugging method number two is this, what is being demonstrated here, so that you can add some kind of print out statements in JavaScript. It's console log. In some other programming language, it's something else, but there always is some way to print out contents of variables or print out text to some kind of text output terminal or console or something like this. So in trying to solve the problem, when you are reading through the code, you don't know, okay, why is this not working? You could edit the code, you could add, like they're showing here, you could add some printout statements to help you to understand that what is going on in the code, because then you can see the values of variables, for example. And we could do this. So let's see how this can be done. So here there is a function update label. It is here. When we have this get started JS file open, here we can see that here is the update label function. Now in this inspect element tool, we can edit the code and run this code. But this editing is done only in your browser memory. This file is coming from GitHub server. So of course, when we edit the file here, the code here, we don't have access of modifying the file in the server itself. So we are only editing the file in the browser memory. But it doesn't matter, we can still do it. If we click here, we can just write here console log add DIN1. You can see what is happening. Console log add DIN2. And then we could see, okay, what is the sum? Because the problem was that when we put 5 plus 10, we get 510. So this is where we are doing the calculation. console log sum, and so on. Here you can see a small star which indicates that this is not saved, that you have modified it. So you need to click Ctrl and S so that it's saved. It is saved in the browser memory. And here is a yellow symbol saying that the changes to this file were not saved to the file system, meaning that if you refresh this view, then these changes will be lost. Okay, when I change here, okay, let's put here, for example, 8 and 8. New numbers, I click here, it's 8, 8. Okay, now we have some console outputs. We can see here in the console, this is what we get, 8, 8, and 8, 8. If you put here 1 and 8, now it shows 1, 8, and 18. So first printout was this addend 1, second one was this addend 2, the third one was this sum. We can, if this gets confusing that which printout is which one, we can of course write here that addend 1 value is this, and then like so, and some value is, you can do for example like this, and do it again, see in the console. Okay, addend 1 value is 1, addend 2 value is 8, some value is 18. This is very strange. What might be the problem? So this kind of debugging with console printouts. This is the debugging tool what you have, number 2. First one was to read the code. Second one is to put some printout statements there, which maybe could help you. And then third one is to use a proper debugger, which allows you to stop the execution or pause the execution in a breakpoint. And this third one is the most powerful one. And whenever you are setting up a new programming environment or starting to work with some new programming language, I very much recommend you to invest the time on learning that how does the debugger work, because it will pay you back the time investment later on when you start to develop. Okay, so let's see how does the debugger then work. What we could do here is that when we have here the source, and here we have these line numbers, when I move my mouse cursor here, you can see that the line number is highlighted with this kind of gray arrow looking thing. I can click there and it turns into blue. And here on the right side, you can see that something appears under the section breakpoint. Now it indicates that I have a breakpoint at this line. I can have multiple breakpoints. They are always shown in blue. I can toggle them here on and off, or by doing it here. If you want to save the breakpoint location, but just temporarily disable it, you can do it by here on these checkboxes. If you want to totally remove the breakpoint, you can do it here on the line number. Okay, let's see what happens. I have a breakpoint now at line 29. Here, var addend 1 equals get number 1. So this breakpoint means that the execution should pause at this line, and it means that this line is not yet executed. The next operation would be to execute the line where we have the breakpoint. And when we have a breakpoint, we must trigger it somehow. So this function is executed when the button is clicked. So to see our breakpoint in action so that it actually pauses the execution, we must first do the action which executes the code. And in this case, when we click here, now it shows paused in debugger, the screen goes gray. And here you can see this kind of highlighted row that here is now the execution. And here it says also paused on a breakpoint. Now you can see here some data in the scope section. You can see variables, values of variables, local variables. You can see what is the so-called this, and then you can see global variables. And as you can see, there is quite a lot of stuff in the global variable. And these variables are something what this global variable is something which is initialized by default by the browser JavaScript engine. But we don't have to care about this at this moment. Okay, so here we have our execution. Now we have the execution paused. So this line has not yet been executed. Here we can have, or we have these tools that we can do with this breakpoint. If we click resume script execution, this means that the script execution will continue normally from here. If I click here, the code executes, and that's it. I again click on the button to execute the code, and we are back here in the breakpoint. Then here we have some other tools at our disposal. So step over the next function call. Then there is step into the next function call and step out of the current function. So these mean that now when we have a function call at this line, this get number 1, in this debugger, we can decide what we want to do, how we want to step this code through. If we click this step over, it means that this function will execute, but we will not go inside there. Instead, the execution will be paused here at line 30. So we will see the results of this get number 1 function. If we click here, step into the next function call, then our execution will go inside this function, and then we can see what happens there. So it is up to you to decide what you want to do when you are doing the debugging. We can see both here. So if I click here, step over, get number 1 function was executed, and now there is a value for this variable addend1. And when I hover my mouse cursor over there, you can see that it shows that what is the value of this variable. It shows it also here. And then also here in the right side where you have this local scope and variable addend1, it now has a value of 1. And now you can see by this blue line here that our execution is now paused at line 30. If we step over, now this console log statement was executed. If we peek here in the console, we can see that, yeah, here it is. Here is the output of that line. Now we step over get number 2, it is 8. Do this, and do this. Now when we are seeing the variables and the values, we can see that when we have addend1 plus addend2, we get the result of sum, which is 18. And this does not make any sense. Then here on this line, label text content equals addend1 plus a string plus addend2 plus a string of equals and then the value of sum. So what is happening here is that this string here 1 plus 8 equals 18 will be displayed. But because the sum is 18, so the problem happens somewhere here above. Okay, so that is the step over. Let's see, go start one more time. What is the difference if we use this step into the function call? Now you can see that the execution jumped here to the line 38. We went in the function get number 1, and we are now here. This line is about to execute. Return inputs 0. Inputs is some kind of array, and then return the value there. And we can see here, this is some kind of node list object. Looks like almost like an array. It has 2 elements. It indicates here that it has 2 elements. Here are the element, the indexes, index number 0 and 1. So this is a convenience function which gets the number 1 for us. Okay. Now if we try to do this step into the next function call, now we have executed this line. It shows here return value will be number 1 from this function. Then when we click now, the execution of this get number 1 function finishes, and we are now about to start the execution of line number 30. And addend 1 has now the value of 1. If I click here, step into the console.log, you can see by default that at least in this situation, the browser does not go into the implementation of this log function. So you cannot see the source code of that. So it always jumps over this log function, no matter what. Then here we are at get number 2. If we click, we go here to the line number 41. This is now about to execute. Return value from here is 8. And now it's finished. Then sum is calculated, and then there is this console statement, and then we are using this text content to set some value here to the browser to be visible for the user. Okay, let's have a break of 15 minutes. And after that, let's see what is wrong in this code. If you already detected it, then good work. You can also think about it during the break if you want, that why does it put 1 plus 8 equals 18. But we'll see about that after the break. So break until 11:15. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, one thing which I forgot to mention, which was mentioned here in this Chrome DevTools tutorial, is that there is also this watch expressions feature, which, as it says, that gives you the capability of monitoring values of variables over time. And in addition to just monitoring variables, it allows you to have some expressions there as well. So basically single statement code lines, it's here. So for example, if you would like to see that what are the values of this addend 1 and addend 2, we could also add them here. And I need to make sure that type is correct. Addend 2, and then for example, sum. Oh. No, I can't write sum. It always wants to autocomplete. Okay, seems impossible to avoid the autocomplete for some reason for the sum. Anyhow, you can also have these variables here in the watch. And then once you execute, the watch will also update the variables, the values as they are available So they're also available here in the scope. This is something what you can also use. And also because it accepts expressions, so it's also possible to write, for example, here that type of addend1 to see that, okay, what is the type of addend1? When we go back to the breakpoint, execute 1, now addend1 has a value of 1, and this type of addend1 expression gets the value of a string. So this is also possible. We could also use some other expressions as well. For example, let's see, does it work here if we put like so? So this is like a single line if. You can also use that as an expression. So basically any expression you can use here in the watch. But I have to say that this watch is something what I very rarely use. I typically view the variables here via the breakpoints or through the code. I mean the scope. Okay, so back to the bug here, which we are trying to solve. Did you already recognize that what is going wrong here? Why is this 1 plus 8 getting me 18 when the answer should be 9? What could the possible reason be? Obviously, you can see that something is happening here at line 33. Because here the sum is being calculated. So addend1 and addend2, addend1 plus addend2 equals sum. Yeah, so in the chat there is text being written that this addend1 and addend2 is indeed a string, and you can see it. You could see it here if you put type of addend1, it shows it clearly that the type is string. You can also notice it here because it has these double quotations as the values. So this means that it is a string. And then if we see JavaScript plus operator, let's see what does the documentation say. Okay, addition. Can I find it here? Okay, I can't find now a decent documentation about it, but basically the plus behaves in a different manner depending on the on the type of the parameters. So now because this addend1 is a string and addend2 is a string, the plus operator is indeed a string concatenation. So it combines two strings. This is visible if we put here, for example, hello world. Execute. You can see that hello plus world is hello world. So this is not just for the numbers. So we can have any text here. For example, hello, and it's hello. So when you are dealing with strings, and if you put two strings together with a plus operator, it means that you are combining them, concatenating them. So the problem is that this is a string and this is a string plus it's just two strings together. So this is not done with numbers, but with strings. Okay, so any idea what to do? How could we fix this? How to fix that they are no longer numbers? No longer numbers, but I mean no longer strings. Yeah, we need to convert the strings to numbers. Do you already know how to convert a string to number? Yeah, there are different options. So there are these parse int and parse float methods, for example. So this works like this, that it will take a string inside and then pass. And then let's see, JavaScript, there is this number constructor. So this probably also works. So here, this is now a constructor, basically. Constructor function. So you can give some initialization values, and then you will get initialization as a string, and then you will get a number here. So both of them should work in this situation, and we can try. So we could, for example, put here where we are having the get number one. So parse int. Let's see, does this do what we want? If we put here breakpoint, now it says NaN. Oops. And it says, because I have written here hello, so this is what you get when you are trying to parse int a string which is not a number. So you get NaN, which is a shorthand for saying not a number. So this is an error situation. But oops, when I put here some number, for example 10, and do it again, now you can see that the addend1 has been passed into a number type, and you can see that there are no longer these double quotation characters around. For example, here is the addend2, which still is a string, so it has these double quotation characters to indicate that we are dealing with a string, and it is a different visualization here as well. And here we have this watch type of addend1, shows that now it's a number, whereas previously it was a string. And here you can still see this. What is the result when we have this 10 is now a number, and then this second parameter addend2 is a string. When you have a number plus string, then the end result is still just like just the same as you would have two strings. Okay, Pedro is asking in the chat that can't we use let instead of var? Yes. So basically these days when you are writing JavaScript, I recommend you to use the let instead of the var. The var is much more older variable declaration, and it has certain downsides, which we will talk about later on, which the let does not have. So the let behaves much more like you would maybe expect it to behave based on some logical assumptions, how the syntax of the code looks like. But both of you can use both of them. You just need to know what they are about and what you are doing when you are using either var, let, or const as your variable declaration. But we will talk about these more later on with some examples. Okay, so now we have this number one is being passed to int, number two is not yet. We can try here the number constructor here. This is something where I basically never use. I'm too familiar or comfortable with the parse int or parse float. So let's see how this works. Not even that familiar with the whole number constructor. So now we have still the LO there. It probably says that addend2 not a number. If we convert here to, let's say, 5 and click start it again. Yeah, for these two approaches, parse int or number constructor, they just work the same. So both of them will give you numbers, and then now the calculation works as expected. Yeah, one more thing about this. So now we have been triggering or stopping pausing the execution with these breakpoints. So that is one way. You can also pause on some event listener breakpoints. So there are different events what can happen here in the browser. There are animation events. There can be a clipboard event, meaning copy or paste. Keyboard event when something is typed, or mouse event, or lots of these. So for example, if we put here, open the mouse event category and activate the click. Now, what I expect to happen is that there should be a automatic breakpoint triggered when I click on this button, because here is a click event being activated on the browser. And that is true. This is what happens. So here is now a breakpoint being triggered in something known as include.postload. This is some default code, which actually this seems that this is part of the adblock extension what I'm using. Let's see if we go here. Okay, so now, yeah, it's now stopping on all the functions which are reacting to the click event. So seems that since I have adblock extension installed, the adblock also was debugging, started the debug. Okay, but here is our get started. This is what we were interested in. And here is an on-click function which has been wired to activate when this button is clicked. So now we have a breakpoint there, and then we can see that what happens here. The update label is about to execute, and then we can step in, and then here we are in our familiar code. So these event listener breakpoints, they can also be quite convenient in certain situations, especially if you want to see that what happens with certain events, and if you want to stop on those events. These can be quite handy. Okay, any questions about this debugger use? You will get plenty of practice, and also anytime when you are writing anything for the browser, be it just HTML or CSS or JavaScript, you should always have this inspect element tool open. If you are not using this tool, then you are hurting yourself only a lot, because this inspect element tool in Chrome and the same kind of tools in other browsers, they give you so much capability as a developer that it makes no sense to be developing without them if you are doing something for the browser. So anytime when you are doing some exercise, for example, and you find yourself having a problem, then you must start to think that why is this problem happening, and at that moment you will need this tool, or you will benefit it from it greatly. Back in the days when we were having classroom studies, and students were having problems, let's say that in 50% or even more of the cases, when some student asks for some help, and then I go see what is the problem, then the situation was that they did not even have this tool open, and they were wondering that what is happening. So it is basically that they were blind. They could not even see that what is the problem because they were not using the proper tools. So learn how to use this, and you will benefit from it greatly. All right. So then the next thing is to talk about something known as the browser or JavaScript DOM. So the DOM is something known as document object model, and this is now an internal representation of the entire web page, all its elements, and all of the JavaScript functionality offered by default by the browser. And when we are talking about that, we are modifying the DOM. So basically, then we are modifying the structure of the web page, and we are modifying it with JavaScript. And to understand that how the DOM is constructed, it is basically it is required that you understand how the DOM is constructed, so that you can use JavaScript to your benefit and to make dynamic web pages. And if I remember correctly, we already discussed a little bit about this DOM in the HTML and CSS course. That it is, if you think about these HTML elements, which are part of the DOM, so it forms a tree-like hierarchy. So every element has a single parent, and every element can have multiple children, and that then forms a tree-like hierarchy, a data structure. There is a quite nice DOM visualizer. I will show it here. Which shows how the DOM is indeed created as, or can be visualized as a tree-like data structure. So here is a very simple HTML structure, as you can see. There is the head, and then there is the body. And inside body, we have a single h1, and then a single div, which has some h2 and p elements. And this is how it would be, how it is constructed in the browser memory as the so-called DOM, document object model. So you can see that there is this root element, this HTML. It has two elements here, the head and then the body. And then the head has these meta and title elements. Here, meta and title. And then this body has, let's take the text nodes away. Show. No, okay. So yeah, so then the body has, here is the h1 is the direct child of this, this body element. The div is a direct child of this body. Then this div has multiple children. It has this h2 and then this paragraph with ID Twitter. And then also you can notice that here is this kind of node. For example, it is this comment. The comment is also represented as a node. And then it has multiple of these text nodes. These yellow boxes here, they are basically empty, and they are the result of these white spaces here. Let's see, can we remove them? If we delete all those white spaces, does it still result in those yellow text node visualizations? I think it should not, but let's see. Yeah, here the yellow text nodes disappeared. So even those can be said that they are part of the DOM, this white space and line breaks. But that's also irrelevant. The key thing to understand is that the elements are constructed like this, and every element except this root node, this HTML, every element has a parent, and every element can have multiple children. And then this DOM, document object model in the browser, it comes with a bunch of JavaScript interfaces, of which some of these we are going to be investigating more, such as this document. So this document object, this has lots and lots of different properties and then methods here, which we can use. For example, here are methods which we can use to create new elements, and meaning that we can create new DOM elements with JavaScript on the fly. And then here are methods such as append, which means that we can create elements on the fly with JavaScript, and then we can add them to the DOM as children of some existing elements. And that way we can create dynamically HTML structure, which gives the user a fluid user interface when he does not have to reload entire page. Instead, when we click on some button, something happens. For example, in the HTML and CSS course, we had this e-commerce exercise where you had to do the product listing, product detail view, and then the shopping cart thing. So when you are in the product detail view, there typically is some kind of buy button or add to cart button. So if you would like to, when the user clicks on this add to cart button, if you would like to show some indication to the user that now you have added something to the cart, some visual indication, then you would do it with JavaScript, so that you would create a new element with the DOM interface methods, and then you would add it to the page by using the DOM interface methods listed here. So that is the thing what we are going to be learning next. And this Mozilla Developer Network documentation site, this is a very good documentation. So I recommend you to read on this also on your own, on your own time. And if you are searching something and get the hit here, then you can know that that's pretty good quality, documentation. Okay, let's make an exercise or demonstration about how to get started with the DOM things. And when we are going to be modifying the DOM, for example, if you would like to add some new buttons or some new images to the screen by using JavaScript, what we need to do is that we need to first select the element where we want to add or which we want to modify. So we can create new elements, we can modify existing elements, or we can delete those existing elements. All those possibilities are open to us. But the common thing with all these, whether or not you want to create, you want to modify or delete some element, you must have the capability of selecting the target of this operation. So that's the reason why we will start from how you select these these elements. So let's put it here. I'm going to create a new HTML file. Copy here the structure. I have the empty HTML template. So let's say that this is now an example HTML for the DOM selectors. And we have some kind of HTML structure here. For example, we have a paragraph which says hello selectors, for example. And then let's see, we have here hello selectors and then some other text. Well, some other text, for example, like this. Now, if we have some JavaScript code, we would like to do something, for example, for this one, which is hello selectors. We need to have a capability of selecting that one. Exactly in the same way as what you are doing with CSS. When you want to style, for example, this one, you need to have some way of selecting this element for the styling. What are you typically using in CSS for selecting an element? If you would need to select exactly this one, what would you do in the CSS? What capabilities or options do you have? How to select in CSS this element? What would you do?
Creating a class or ID for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's, for example, use the ID. So I'm going to create an ID of target. So this would enable us to select exactly this element based on this ID target for styling. And we can use also this same logic when we are dealing with JavaScript. So let's create a variable which shall hold this element. So the idea is that we are going to be using the document interface from the DOM. You can call it by writing document. This is now part of the general, global scope in the browser when you are programming. This is something which is not available in Node.js, for example, but only in a browser because it's part of the browser JavaScript execution environment. Okay. Okay, here the tab 9 is suggesting that probably you want to use something like this. There is a method called getElementById. And how this works is that you give a single parameter and you write the value of the ID what you want to select. So in this case, we have here the ID value is target, so target is just fine. So now what will happen is that this target variable, this will now hold a reference to this element in the browser DOM, in the browser memory. And then through this target variable, through the reference which it contains, we can then read all the data regarding this element, and we can also modify that element in any way what we want. But let's just see here in the console.log, what does it print to the console for us. So since we are dealing with the console, it is not showing anything in without the inspect element tool here. And yeah, so now it's showing that, okay, this is the element that you have now selected. We can also see here in the sources, if we go and put a breakpoint, let's see what kind of data does it show in the breakpoint. If we put a breakpoint here at line 16, then we have already executed line 15. So I reload, and now you can see that this is what the single element has. So it has a whole lot of properties here. Most of values which are null or something. Here is a list of all the children. So this doesn't have any children except this text, this hello selectors. It says here child nouns it's text. So here we can see there is this text and it says hello selectors. But there are no HTML elements there. There is no classes. The class name is empty. What else does it say? Draggable. Here is the value for the ID target. Here is something known as inner HTML, inner text. These are properties which we shall soon explore. There are then some information on this element type, and then some offset information. These are basically coordinate information that where is this element located on this screen. Oops. And all these on things here on input, on key up, on load, and so on these, which are all values with null. So these are event handlers. So you can connect functions here to be activated in the case of these events. So for example, if we find on a logical one, for example, on click. So this event handler, if we would have an event handler connected here, it would show here the function what would be assigned to the event handler, and then that function would be executed when somebody clicks on this element. But now it's null like all of these others. So this is the default situation that they don't have any of those. What else here? So we were here in the, where is it, offset? Okay, here is the information on the parent. Okay, parent node, it's a div, right? So we have here this P inside the div. So we can of course access the parent. And from the parent, we could access its parent and its parent and its parent. And from any element, we can always go to the parent and to the children. So we can move up and down along the DOM tree. So there is lots and lots of capabilities available here. And when you get familiar with these properties, what these DOM elements, what they offer, and the methods what the DOM itself offers, then basically it is up to your creativity on how to use them to achieve the results what you want. We will see and learn some of the examples, some few examples in this course, but then after that it's basically up to you to be creative on how to use them to your advantage. There is no possibility that in any school or in any course all possible situations could be covered with some kind of examples. But instead, the point is to give you the basic understanding of how things work and how you can use them into your advantage later on. The general logic of how things work. Okay, so this is how a single element looks like. And then if you would, for example, want to see some property, we can find it here. For example, if you would like to get the text of this paragraph, here we can see there is something called text content. Then we can write here code which uses that one. For example, console log element text is target text content. So we find this one here, and then we can use it in our code. Of course, you can also find these properties and their documentation from the Mozilla Developer Network, for example. They are They are definitely listed there. But in many situations, when you are not 100% sure that what property you need, when you want to, for example, to access some value, when you want to access, for example, let's say the value of the class or some other attribute or do something. At least I find it's many times faster that simply to go on and browse this list of these properties in a debugger and then find that, okay, yeah, by the way, okay, it's this one, this element what I need, and then I can just use it in the code when I am unfamiliar with or don't remember what was the name of some property, for example. Okay, so there we have, now we are printing the text content. It's here, hello selector. So this was an example on how you can read data from the DOM. It read this text, and now it printed here in this this console. Okay, so this is one, get elements by ID. Let's see from the documentation point of view. We have here document get elements. So you can see there are multiple get element. So when I find this get element, there are 15 hits altogether. So there are get element by ID. This is what we just did. Get elements by class name, get elements by name, get elements by tag name, and something called by tag name NS. I have never used this one. But here are some of the methods available, what you can use to select some elements or an element. And here in the writing style, there is an important thing to notice. Get element by ID. If you read this as English, it is logical to assume that this gives you a single element, whereas get elements as in plural form, get elements by class name, it is logical to assume that this one will return you multiple elements in some way, as is get elements by name, for example. And we can, for example, test this by class name. So if we have, for example, let's add some classes. Test, and then, for example, here. Now we have this div and this p, both of them have the same class. Document get elements by class name. And the class name is test. So now we would hopefully get these two elements as a result. If we are getting multiple elements, what do you think? What is the data structure, what it will give to us as a return from this method? Yeah, in the chat, Alexander is writing that an array. Yeah, probably so. We can check it out here. Get elements by class name, syntax, examples. Where is the return? Should say here. The type of the return. Okay, returns an array-like object of all child elements. Okay. And it will return something known as HTML collection. It's an array-like object. We could read here more on details, but let's see in practice, how does it work like. So let's print out, log the targets here. Okay, here we are stepping. Now we are executing the targets. And if you see here, it is indeed an HTML collection. here we can see we have an element of the div with the class test, an element of p with the class text test. Length is 2. And then if we open up these, inside these elements we have again all the same properties and methods what we already saw when we had this get element by ID. So this one gives us now an array, and it also gives us an array even if we have only a single result. So if we only have a class which is in a single div, I deleted the class from the P. So also in this situation, you can see that it will give us an HTML collection, an array-like element, as it says in the documentation, even when we only have one hit. So it's always this HTML collection. So this is important because you cannot, for example, here in this code, we were directly reading the text content property of this element. But now the text content does not exist in the targets because the targets is now this HTML collection, an array-like element. So if I put here console log targets, and then if I try to read that one, so it should give me an error. Okay, it just says undefined. Here is the console output of this HTML collection. Let's see, does it have any value in the text content at all? You can scroll here. Since this is now a div which has text content. Okay, here is the text content of this one. So you can see that the text content property behaves so that it shows only text. There is the hello selectors, some other text. There are line breaks, but the HTML elements have been cleared away for this property, as you can see. Here we have the hello selectors and some other text inside paragraphs, but here in this text content they are non-existent. So if you would like to read this text content on the element which we are selecting, meaning this div, we would need to do it through the array syntax here. So we are reading on the index 0, so the first element in the array. And now it's printing the text values of its children here instead of the undefined what was previously. Then, of course, there are possibilities of getting document get elements by tag name. We could get, for example, all P elements. So now we are selecting these two. Or if we have here we could select all div elements. Here console log tags length, for example. The number of divs by elements. We print out the number of divs, what we get with the get elements by tag name here. So it should now give us 2 because we have here 1 and 2. Let's take away the breakpoint. Yeah, so here there it is, the 2. So it is selecting those. So you have these capabilities in the DOM, get element by ID, by class name, by tag name. And then if you want to do the selecting process in the same way as what you do with the CSS, then you have these query selector and query selector all. So let's see how they behave. So document query selector. Now inside this query selector, we can write a CSS selector rule. So if you would, for example, like to select an element with the ID, not ID, but ID target, you could do it like this. If you would like to select an element with the class test, you would do it like this. So exactly the same way as what you do with CSS. So that is what the query selector gives to you. Or if you would like to choose all the divs, like so. So let's see. So query selector result, let's see what it gives us with the div. So it's here. It gives us only a single div, which might be a little bit confusing because here we have also this another div. And the reason for that is that, oops, where is this? That how it says here in the query selector, it says that returns the first element node in the document order that matches the specified selectors. So this query selector method will always give you only one result, whereas this query selector all returns a list of all the element nodes. So that is something what you should keep in mind, that if you want to select only a single element, then this one is totally good. But if you want to select multiple elements, like what we have here, all divs, we should then have all. So now it will select this div and this div. Now it gives us an object called node list, which is again an array-like. So here is our div test and then div. And this query selector and query selector all, they were added relatively lately, maybe some 5 years ago. And they are a really good addition. Before that, to have this capability of using the CSS selector rules, you had to use a library called jQuery, for example. It was a very popular library. So jQuery allowed you to select elements with the same CSS selector logic. But some 5 years ago, roughly, this query selector and query selector all were added. And they now give this capability. So I personally usually use these quite a lot, but sometimes also from old habit, this or this. Okay, so these are for the selector things. Let's have now a break so that we'll continue at 12:30, and then we'll have some or see how we can modify the DOM a little bit. So we can start with that. Okay, break until 12:30. Then we have still 30 minutes of time. If I recall correctly, that our class ends at 1. Yes. Okay. let's continue then. So for the next phase, I'm gonna open up the code from my repository, which I showed you earlier. I have it here. It's this one. So this repository is organized like this, that there are these main level folders, intro. Okay, here are some examples what we already discussed about, and then here is this number 2 DOM, has some content what we already did today. This select DOM element here is some example code with this get element by ID, get elements by class name, and then query selector, and so on. So now let's see some example on how DOM can be modified with JavaScript. So I will open up this now. Oops, not that one. Open this one now in wrong button. Revealing file explorer here. This number 2 modify DOM text contents inner HTML file, and with Google Chrome here. So here are a couple of examples. We have some buttons here, and when I click on this read and update with text contents, a function is triggered, which then targets a div here and then modifies the div contents by modifying the property called text content. You can see it looks like this. And then here is a second one, which introduces another element property called inner HTML, which puts the same string to the inner HTML property, and it looks like this. So you can see there is a little bit difference. So let's see the code, how it looks like exactly. So here we have first some paragraphs, hello world, some content, another content. So there are these three here. And then we have here an h2 text content target. That's this one. And then after this h2, we have a div with an ID of text content target. And this div, it has now 2 child divs inside with values A and B. And then the same thing for here with the inner HTML target, the same logical structure. Only difference is that the ID is here inner HTML target. Then we have the 2 buttons. These buttons, they are normal HTML buttons. And the new thing here is the usage of this on-click attribute, which works so that when you write it like this in HTML, it sets this function to be called and executed when there is a click event onto this button. So read text contents is declared here. So it's a normal JavaScript function. And the second button has read inner HTML, and it's here. Yeah, the naming doesn't make much sense because they're actually modifying. I originally had an example which was just reading, but now it's modifying also. So this reading thing is a leftover from that, from older example. Anyhow, this read text content, what does it do? It first selects this div, text content target, here by using the query selector, then hashtag text content target, meaning that we are now selecting an element with the ID. ID means this is because we are using here the hashtag. So we are selecting this div. It will be here, referenced by this target variable. Here I'm printing the text content to the console. And then I'm setting a new value to the text content of this target. So as a normal string, I'm writing this div style color red with some text hello inside. And you can see when we are using the text content property, the result will be text. So the HTML div is not evaluated and rendered by the browser, but instead the browser will just put this string there as pure text. So that is the text content, how it behaves. Then we have the inner HTML property, which works in a little bit different way. When we put here exactly the same string as what we have here to the inner HTML, you can see that the browser will in fact evaluate and render the HTML as it would have been there from the first place in a static manner. So this hopefully illustrates the difference between the text content and inner HTML. And one thing to notice is that, which we see very clearly, if we have this inspect element tool open, here this text content, if we open this one, you can see that we have these two divs here. When we click on this text content, read and update text content button, you can see that the divs what were there, they are erased. So the two child divs are erased totally when we modify the text content of this div. So this is the starting moment. Here we have two divs with A and B text inside. And when we select this and then modify its text content like so, those A and B divs are totally erased and replaced by this text of div style, so. And the same thing works here when we have this inner HTML target. Here we have this div C and D, two divs. When I click here, those two divs are replaced, but now, because the inner HTML property works differently than the text content property, you can see that here a new div is being constructed and the browser is has inserted it into the DOM, so it is there now as a normal div from the browser viewpoint. So two properties, text content and inner HTML, same string is being assigned in both of them, and the behavior is slightly different. In both of these cases, the child divs of this of the targets, the child divs and child elements, they are all erased, but how this string is being how it behaves is a bit different. That the inner HTML, as the name says, this is HTML, and this is only text. So the inner HTML will actually evaluate this one and put it for the browser to execute. So this is one way how you can create elements in a dynamic fashion, by adding them into the inner HTML. So that's one example. Okay, so we have a couple of exercises in this document what I was showing you in the beginning, and put the link to the chat. I will also put the link to this one to the Moodle. So we have now an exercise here. So here it says open two DOM exercises, one select DOM elements HTML file. So this file can be found from here. So this path refers to this two DOM exercises, and then one select DOM elements. So here, for all these exercises, there is always this solutions folder where are these solutions inside there. And now there will be 3 tasks for you to do. And it's the same thing here. After this, here is another exercise. So both of these would be your home exercises for next week, since we don't have now time to go through these here in the class. But we can start this first one. So let's see how this exercise template looks like in the first place. Okay, exercises, and this first one. Let's open it in the browser. So here is a table, as you can see. It looks like this: 3 columns, company, contact, country, and then some values. Here is the HTML file, so we have some internal CSS styling for the table, and then there is the table itself with multiple rows here, and some classes. Okay, so what was the task? So the first task is to write code which prints to the console the value of the ID attribute of the entire element. So of the table element, yeah. So you would need to write a code which prints this to the console. I will give you about 5 minutes for that, so you can try to write the solution. You can write it here, and 5 minutes time. So then we'll see together what is the how to do that one. So you can think about it based on what we have already gone through. If you manage to do it within the 5 minutes, then by all means try to do the task 2 and 3 as well, if you manage to do them in a quicker way. So I will give you 5 minutes time. 5 minutes time to process that one, and at 12:50 we'll see how this task number 1 could be finished. Yeah, and if you were wondering where do you get this code in the first place, so it was this repository here in the beginning. I will put to the chat the link. There is the link to the repository, so clone it, and then you can navigate into this folder. And then you will have this code there ready. Okay, did you manage to do this in this relatively brief 5-minute time? Task number 1. So print the value of the ID attribute of the table element. So if you think about what needs to be done first thing is to select the table element. Then we can access its properties. So here we'll write a small piece of code. So let table, and then document, for example, get element by ID. It's this exercise table. Like so, and then console log video table is, now we can put table dot, I think it should be ID, if I recall correctly. Let's see. Yeah, so it says exercise table. Also, there is one useful command that you can write called debugger. When you write debugger to your code, it's like setting a breakpoint. So when I execute this, the execution stops there at the debugger. So this is quite useful as well. So here I can quickly check, make a quick peek here that, okay, indeed there is an property called ID. Where is it? their X size table. Yeah. So I'm reading the value of this one and then printing it. Okay, so then the second one. What was the second one? Write code which prints all the company names in the about table to the console. Okay, this one is a little bit more trickier maybe. All the company names, meaning that we want to print this, 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 and this to the console. Any ideas how to do that? Did somebody manage to do this, or can you come up with a solution in real time? Okay, Alexander has some solution in chat. Yeah, you can, for example, paste code if you want. Okay, I will copy this code from the chat here to my screen. So if you create a new script tag here, task2. Yeah, so here is a good one. So get elements by class name. So getting all elements with the class name company. So well done. You have recognized that, yeah, we have this class company and all of these here. So by using this one, it's pretty easy to choose, to select these elements. So we will get the TD elements. So this one will get basically an array-like element, which has all these TD elements. Also, it's there the names. And then from those elements, by reading the text content property inside a for loop. So that will get us the names quite easily. Let's execute the code. We'll see here. So here it prints the names one by one. So yeah, well done. So mastering the element selection is a key skill when you need to do anything with the DOM. So here we are reading the values, but then when you want to start to creating or modifying the DOM, then always you will need to be able to select and navigate inside the DOM. Okay, then the task 3, what does it say? It says here, write code which prints to the console the value of the country cell with the active class. So here we see, where is it? Here we have, in one of these rows, we have this class active, and it's this one which is here with this blue highlight in the browser. So now the value of the country cell, that one would need to be printed now out. So basically the country of the active row. So we would like to get, in this case, Canada to the console. Any ideas how to do this? Well, always we begin by thinking that how can we select? Since we already know that we have this class active, we need to select by this one. So we are going to need to select this element. And then, because we can navigate within the DOM, we can go to the parent of every element, and we can go to the children of every element. So if we select this element, then it gives us capability of going and accessing also these child elements here. So we'll do that one. We have not yet seen an example on how to deal with the child elements, but let's do it here. So script, and let's first select the row, document, and get okay, I'm going to use the query selector. It was the class active. Okay, and then in the debugger, what do we get as the row? Here. So now a row, where do we have the child? Somewhere child nodes. Here are all the nodes. We have the text nodes as well. But children, this has the HTML elements. So it's length of 3. These 3 TDs are here. So now, because we know the structure of this table, that the third one is this TD, okay, we can access that one. So let target element, our final target element is the third one, so row, and then it was children, and then the third one, so second index number. Here we can see children. Index number 2 is this one, and then from there we can read the value, the text content, for example. There is also inner text. You can read it from there. This one all reads the text of an element. So we can use, for example, this one, inner text. So console log active country is target element, and then text. So first we select the row with the query selector based on the active class, and then from the row we go to the children and we take the child with the index number 2, meaning the third child is this country cell here, and then from the target element we are going to print out the inner text. And now let's see, take the debugger away. And active country is Canada. So this one shows you an example on how you can also access the child elements and then read their properties as well. Okay, what do you think? Our time is up. Do you think now that you have an idea how to select elements and how to do small modifications for the DOM? Hopefully so. We have here you have a couple of more exercises. So in this document, you have this in this manipulating elements chapter, same thing what we have already been discussing. So here is a homework for you. This second one, modify DOM text. Modify DOM text contents in the HTML. So here here are 3 tasks, and then you should be able to do these. And then if you are having serious trouble, here in the solutions folder, you can see a solution for these exercises as well. But don't jump immediately to the solution. It's only there as a last resort or to compare your own solution. So try to get these done on your own. That's the way how you learn the best. You learn nothing by if you copy without thinking. Okay, so that's it for today. And see you on next time. Have a nice day. Bye.
Goodbye.